Well, most people don't know that back in 1912, Hellmann's mayonnaise was manufactured in England. And in fact, the Titanic was carrying 12,000 jars of the condiment scheduled for delivery in Veracruz, Mexico, which was to be the next port of call for the great ship after its stop in New York. And this would have been the largest single shipment of mayonnaise ever delivered to Mexico. I know you know where this is going. But as we know, the great ship did not make it to New York. The ship hit an iceberg and sank, and the cargo was forever lost. The country of Mexico was said to have been crazy about mayonnaise at the time and had been eagerly awaiting its delivery, very upset at the loss. This upset was so great that a national day of mourning was declared, which is still observed to this day. The National Day of Mourning occurs every year on May 5th and is known, of course, as Cinco de Mayo. Do you know how long I have wanted to tell that joke? I waited for May 5th on a Sunday. Yay. Happy Cinco de Mayo! Well, as you heard earlier, this space yesterday was filled to overflowing. About 200 people here to celebrate the life of Lauren Goldstein, who passed on March 12th. And for those of you who were not here or did not know Lauren, Lauren was a member of Unity of Gaithersburg since 1992. And over the years, she was a constant presence of love and joy here. She regularly attended Sunday services sitting right back there where David is, pretty much. And serving on the greeter usher team as the lead for the last 6 years. And it was a joy to behold the ways people spoke of her, the music that celebrated her, and the love that flowed at the very mention of her name. And to me, this is a testament of a life well lived, to a life that impacted many for the better. And Lauren was a light in this world, and she shined that light brightly, uplifting souls. And someone said to me yesterday as we were over in the reception, because we had this potluck reception where there was tables and tables and tables of food. It was so beautiful. Someone said to me at the reception that they hoped their life would be as impactful as Lauren's. That it too would be celebrated for how much light they were able to shine to make people's lives sweeter, their burdens lighter, and their hearts uplifted. So life, it seems that there are so many challenges to our lives these days that can hinder our expression of light and joy. As the world around us seems a little bit dark sometimes, and conflict and filled with the belief that we are separate from another. And so I'm going to share with you how that came into my sphere this week, and I hope I can do it. I have Kleenex here. So last week, thank you, Edie, for being here to share the message last week. As I was in Charlotte, many of you know that my mom passed in November, and so I was busy in Charlotte handling details of my mother's estate. And so my best friend, my BFF, lives in Winston-Salem, and so she came down to be support for me, and her mom lives there, and her son attends UNCC, University of North Carolina at Charlotte there. And so over the weekend, we talked about going out to see Merritt at UNCC to take a tour, because that's my alma mater. I graduated in 1983. And apparently the campus has completely transformed, and he just says, you'd be blown away at how amazing it is now. So we thought we'd get together and do this tour, but Merritt was swamped because it was finals week, and he's in construction management, and so he had this project to do, and he had all these exams to study for. And so we said, well, we'll just, we'll do the tour another time. However, we still wanted to see each other, so he invited us out. He works a couple jobs to support himself in school, and he gives out cheer wine samples at festivals. Okay, Tier 1 is a beverage bottled in North Carolina. It's awesome, and it's non-alcoholic, and it's really yummy. And so he goes around, and so we met him at the International Sandwich Festival, where he was giving out samples for Tier 1. And we did this, and we exchanged our hugs, and and I love this guy. He calls me Aunt Sheryl. Here I go. So you know where this is going. I know you know. His brother Hunter called me Aunt Sheryl. They're precious souls, and they really appreciate the friendship that their mom and I have shared since we were 12 years old. But this past Tuesday, I get this frantic call from Blair that there was an active shooter on the campus of UNCC. And she tried to get Merritt by phone, and he wasn't answering. And Merritt is a young man in his 20s that is not attached to his phone. He's not. What he's attached to is his skateboard. So when he's not studying, he is out on the campus, all over the campus, doing flips and jumps and doing all these amazing feats on his skateboard. And so Blair was beside herself, and my heart sunk to my feet. I just went, oh my God, what if Merritt is out, on the campus, on his skateboard, and he confronts the shooter? That's where my mind went. And so, of course, we were very teary, and so we had no way of knowing because Merritt wasn't checking his phone. And all we knew at that point was that 3 people had been shot, and they thought that the police had apprehended the shooter. And finally, Merritt checked his phone and immediately called his mom, and he answered my text. And we breathed relief, and yet what we found out later were 2 students, age 21 and 19, had died, and 4 other students had been taken to the hospital. 2 precious young men had been killed. And one of the young men died trying to apprehend the shooter because there was no place to run or hide. Instructions for students now in schools are run, hide, fight. That's what our children are learning. Run, hide, fight. So if you can't run and you can't hide and there's imminent danger, you do your best to try and fight, apprehend the shooter. And so this one man apprehended, tackled the shooter, and lost his life in the process. And this whole thing just rattled me to my core. Whenever I see parents that are shaken with when their children have been slain, through senseless gun violence, I weep with them. And this time, it came really close. And there's something different about that, and I noticed that in myself. And I had to work with that because I know that all the children of the world are my children. So I noticed I felt a little helpless. I felt all this emotion bubbling up in me. And so I thought, okay, Sheryl, this is your time to go to what you know. And so I went to prayer. I went to holding knowing. And then asked, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? And the thing is, I knew I had to talk about this with you this morning. And when I sat down after the service yesterday and I started writing, I'm like, what am I going to say? And I'm not going to launch into a discussion about common sense gun control laws, although I have some passion around that. I'm not going to do that this morning. But what came to me is that when we hear news like this, there's like this spectrum of response. For some people, maybe it's just denial. I just can't deal with that. Maybe we put our heads in the sand, or there's fear, maybe there's tears, there's anger, there's rage, maybe activism. And all of these responses are completely understandable. And I think that when we hear about these kinds of things, that we have to confront our feelings. We have to just allow ourselves to process them and be gentle with wherever we are, and then ask. I just think we have to ask, what is ours to do? And the first thing that came to me, because I was talking about this with my friend Gail, what came to me is that we have to increase our capacity to be able to hold what's happening in our world. It's because if we can't hold it, it can have a crushing impact. It can for some of us, and it has the ability to kind of overwhelm and have us feel powerless. And the thing is, we are not powerless. And the vision I get is some of the, the visions of like Mother Earth holding, Mother Earth actually holding our planet, because the way that we increase our capacity to hold our world, I believe, is to increase our capacity to love. We have to increase the space we can hold for love, to express. We have to make room. This is the visual I get all the time. It's like hold space. And we have to make room for love, and we make room for whatever's not love. And right now, my 4-year-old goddaughter has decided that it is not hers to do to go to bed. I mean, she does not want to go to bed. And I remember I was like this when I was her age. I did not want to miss a thing. And so how she tends to express now is loudly. She has what we might label a tantrum, and what I notice about her parents, they hold space. They hold space for her to express whatever she's expressing. And and they support her in loving ways. But I thought about that. They just hold space for her. And then a new possibility has room to express itself, to unfold. Because the thing about it is, with toddlers or anything else in our world, if we stay reactive, we stay in that energy that creates the disruption. It's just so, difficult, and especially when I was in this space of not knowing about marriage safety, I just wanted to no. Push against instead of holding. And so it taught me that to ask myself in the midst of what is mine to do is to what is mine to know. And what is mine to know is that I'm love, and I have the capacity to hold love in the midst of something that feels very terrifying. And because, folks, and I know we talk about it here at Unity, but I think it's time to really claim and know there is no power greater than love in this world. Nothing is up against it. Nothing is greater than that. And its impact. And again, I was inspired by yesterday, hearing about Lauren Goldstein, hearing about the love, the ripple that she left in the pond of people's lives because of her love. That's how powerful love is. And it had me think of, and I think we've talked about this before, but I wanted to re-presence it, this technique called the Tonglen. It's a Tibetan word that means taking and sending. So because we are love and because we have this capacity to hold our world, we can, when we hear things like I heard this week, when we see somebody on the side of the road, maybe struggling with their car, or someone in our life is hurting, what we can do, because we are love, we can take in that energy. We can breathe it in and then send out a blessing, and then send out love. Because the beautiful thing is, because we're love, nothing's going to stick. That's ick. Not when we have that intention, because we're holding. We're holding. And I think we also get to remember that, okay, so this is an interaction, and it is an active way to be involved in what's happening in our world. And I think it's also an opportunity for us to really ask ourselves, what is mine to do to be an active engagement externally in the world? Is there something for me to do? There's a verse in 1 John that says, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. So, what is our inner wisdom calling each of us to do in the midst of this turmoil, external turmoil in our world? I think we get to hold space, remember the Tonglen, and then are there steps that we take? Are there actions that we take? What is your wisdom informing you to do? And I like to call that discernment. You know, when we get in that space and ask, what is ours to do? Meister Eckhart said, what we plant in the soil of contemplation, we shall reap in the harvest of action. Be still and know. So this week, I just invite you to take some time in the silence and reflect, what is mine to do to create a world that works for all? Every person, every animal, our environment, all of it. What is mine to do? What is my unique contribution to make to the world that will bring me joy, passion, and aliveness? Because when you are in that place of joy, passion, and aliveness, you're going to make a difference. And I just invite us, let's set an intention to practice the Tonglen. That we can take in Facebook news, evening news, David Muir, whoever. We can take it all in. We can hold space. And we can breathe out love. Breathe out knowing. Breathe out peace. And there's another conversation that I had yesterday with one of Jim's really old friends. And we were talking about what would it be like if we lived our life celebrating people before they pass. And he shared something meaningful he had learned from an Aboriginal tribal custom of celebrating people on their birthdays by sharing with them how much they mean to you, how grateful you are for them, what it is they are and do and express that you appreciate. What if we made this a practice? Yeah. So just want to plant, it doesn't even have to be a birthday. It can just be, honey, you know what? This is what I appreciate about you. Friend, thank you. So thank you for being with me in this conversation this morning. This was a little bit of a tough one, but I felt like we can do this, folks. We are amazing people, and we know what we are, and we have the capacity to hold love for our planet, regardless of what's showing up. We can do that. We can be that. And we can also be in action, uniquely, in what is ours to do, to co-create a world that works for all. Let's affirm together. I take discerned action to make my unique contribution to a world that works for all. Thank you. Bless you.